I was halfway through my shift at the coastal resort when it happened. My phone buzzed, just a soft vibration in my pocket, nothing unusual. I was about to ignore it, but something told me to check. Maybe it was instinct, or maybe it was just that kind of day when everything feels slightly off. I pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and froze. It was a picture, a sunny beach, turquoise waves, people in wide brimmed hats and colorful swimwear holding frozen drinks, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. People the first knew, my parents, Linda and Richard, my younger siblings, Zoe and Connor, even my Aunt Karen and Uncle Mike. All of them, together, grinning, glowing, toasting to what looked like the perfect vacation. The caption read, "Much needed family escape hashtag blessed, except." There was nothing blessed about it. Because I hadn't been invited, I stared at the photo for what felt like forever. Not because of how perfect it looked, but because of how completely I'd been erased from it. There was no empty space where I should have stood, no caption that said, "Wish Ethan could have made it." Just silence. My hand trembled slightly as I scrolled through the rest of the pictures. Dinners by candlelight, snorkeling trips, matching t-shirts that read Walker Family Getaway 2024. Walker Family. Except not me. I checked my texts. Nothing. No missed calls. Not even a half-hearted, "Hey, sorry, we thought you were too busy with work." Nothing. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part came 5 minutes later when I called my dad. He answered on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "Hey, son, everything good?" I didn't even greet him. "Where are you?" A pause. Not long, but long enough. "Cancun," he admitted, a little too casually. "Without me?" My voice was low, calm, but it took everything in me to keep it that way. "Well," he cleared his throat, "we figured you'd be busy. Besides, you've been a little intense lately. Thought it might be nice to have a more relaxed vibe." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You mean you didn't want me there?" Another pause. This one lasted longer. Then he said the words that would change everything. "Look, Ethan, sometimes you just bring the mood down. We wanted this to be easy. That's when I knew. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't a scheduling mix-up. It was a choice. They didn't forget to include me. They chose to exclude me. And I was the one who had been covering their rent when Dad lost his business. I paid off Mom's medical bills after her surgery. I sent Zoe money when she dropped out of college and needed help getting back on her feet. I had sacrificed vacations, promotions, relationships, just to make sure they were okay. And they went on a trip without even telling me, because I brought the mood down. I ended the call, calmly, quietly, then I opened my banking app. It was time to stop being the safety net for people who never once checked if I was okay. The apartment was quiet when I got home. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't comfort, it just presses on your chest. I dropped my keys onto the counter and opened my laptop, my hands still shaking slightly. I'd made financial transfers so many times I could do it in my sleep, but this time, it felt different. First, I opened my scheduled payments list. There it was, $2,000, set to transfer to my parents in 2 days. The amount I'd been sending them every month for the last 3 years, ever since Dad's business failed, and Mom couldn't handle the stress of budgeting anymore. I hovered over the cancel button, and for a moment, I hesitated. Then I clicked. Transfer canceled. Next, I checked the joint emergency fund account. I had started it back when Zoe was struggling with student loans, and Connor was still working part-time at the coffee shop. I was the only one depositing into it anymore, $500 a month, like clockwork. The balance was down to $126. Of course it was. One transferred what was left into my personal account. Then I removed everyone else's access. I sat there for a while, staring at the screen. I thought I'd feel guilt, panic, regret, but I didn't. I felt peace, not the kind that makes you smile, the kind that comes after a storm, the quiet after the screaming. That moment when you finally realize you've been the only one holding up a house built to collapse on top of you. I didn't cry. I didn't rant. I just blocked their numbers, one by one. Dad, Mom, Zoe, Connor. Then I closed the laptop and walked to the window, the ocean breeze from the coast drifting through the curtains. For the first time in my life, I was no longer the fixer, the provider, the dependable one. I was just Ethan. And maybe that was enough, or at least it had to be. But the calm didn't last long. By the next morning, my phone lit up like fireworks. Texts from relatives I hadn't heard from in years, missed calls from blocked numbers, even a voicemail from Aunt Margie, voice trembling with manufactured concern. Your mom is in tears, Ethan. She said, you just cut everyone off. What's going on, sweetheart? Then came the guilt bombs. You're punishing your family after all they've done for you? Your father gave up everything for you, and this is how you repay him? But one message stood out because I knew exactly who it came from. No name. Just a number. And one sentence, you think you can just walk away from us? After everything we gave you? Pathetic. It wasn't signed. It didn't need to be. It was Richard Walker, my father. And in that moment, I knew something they hadn't figured out yet. They didn't lose their son. They lost their bank. And for the first time in years, I didn't care. 2 days later, I walked into work and immediately felt it the weight in the air. Like everyone knew something I didn't. Hey, Ethan, my manager, Mr. Larkin, called from his office. Got a second? I stepped in. He closed the door behind me and gestured to the chair across from him. I got a call this morning, he said. From your mother. My stomach turned cold. She said, you're having, what did she call it? An emotional spiral. That you're pushing away family, making unstable financial decisions, and might need some time off. I just stared at him. He held up a hand. Look, I told her straight up your personal life isn't company business. But I wanted you to hear it from me. I nodded, keeping my voice steady. I'm not in crisis. I just stopped financially supporting my parents. They're upset. That's all this is. He leaned back, studying me for a long second. Then he nodded. Okay, I believe you. But if they reach out again, you let me know immediately. When I walked out of his office, I felt like I had just stepped out of a cold shower. They tried to sabotage my job. It wasn't enough to guilt trip me. Now they were going after my livelihood, my reputation, trying to frame me as unstable just to scare me back into submission. That night, the texts and messages intensified. Old friends, family friends, even coworkers, all of them suddenly concerned. Your mom called me. She's really worried. They said you're acting strange, that you might be depressed. Are you okay? And the worst one? They said they might have to sell the living room furniture just to make rent. Like I was supposed to feel guilty for their poor choices. Like cutting off financial support after years of giving was the crime and not their entitlement. I wanted to scream. Instead, I sent one message to everyone, please don't get involved. They're not struggling, they're manipulating. And I'm done being used. But even that didn't stop them. Even Carl, my best friend since college, reached out. Dude, your mom just messaged me on Facebook. Told me you're shutting everyone out and that she's afraid you're in trouble. He sent me the screenshot. The message was full of carefully chosen phrases. We're just worried. We love him. He's not himself lately. I called Carl immediately. I don't believe a word of it, he said before I could even explain. I told her not to contact me again. I sank into the couch, a strange mix of gratitude and fury in my chest. They weren't just trying to reach me anymore. They were building a narrative, a story where I was the villain, the unstable son, the selfish, heartless one. And if enough people believed it, then they'd win. They'd erase everything I'd done for them, every loan, every quiet sacrifice, every sleepless night making sure the bills were paid on time and paint me as some bitter, ungrateful failure. But they didn't realize one thing. I wasn't scared anymore. They thought I would fold, like always. But this time, I was done playing defense. I was going to tell the whole truth. Loud, clear, and in front of everyone. I had stayed quiet out of respect. I had kept the peace out of guilt. But they crossed a line when they dragged my name into question at work. When they called my friends behind my back. When they tried to rewrite history and turn me into the villain. So if they wanted everyone involved, then everyone would hear the truth. I didn't post a vague story. I didn't drop hints or cryptic quotes. No, I opened Facebook, typed a full public status, and told it like it was. For those wondering, no, I'm not having a mental breakdown. I'm not cutting off my family out of spite. I've simply stopped financially supporting my parents after years of paying their bills, covering debts, and sacrificing my own life for their comfort. They excluded me from a family beach vacation on purpose, and when I asked why, my father said, "We didn't want you there." Since then, they've messaged my boss, my friends, even acquaintances from years ago, claiming I'm unstable, just so they could guilt me back into paying their way. But I'm done. I'm not a bank. I'm not an emotional punching bag. I'm their son, and they forgot that a long time ago. And then I hit post. I turned off my phone and took a walk around the neighborhood. I didn't know how people would react. I didn't know if they'd believe me or them. But deep down, I didn't care anymore. For once in my life, I wasn't protecting anyone but myself. By the time I got home and turned my phone back on, it was buzzing nonstop. Dozens of comments, messages, shares as support, real support. Wait, they excluded you and you were paying for them? That's insane. You're not the villain, Ethan. You've just finally had enough, and that's okay. Even my Uncle Martin, the same one who once called me too soft, commented, "If someone gave me $2, $500 a month, I'd be building them a statue, not spreading rumors." Then came the message from Zoe, my cousin, the only person in the family who had ever really understood me. "I had no idea it was this bad. I'm so sorry. You deserve peace." And just like that, the tide began to turn. Their carefully crafted image, poor parents abandoned by their ungrateful son, was cracking. The truth was out, and I wasn't done yet. That evening, I called the one person they never expected me to speak to, their landlord. "Hi, this is Ethan Miller. Just wanted to let you know I will no longer be covering the rent on my parents' apartment. Any previous arrangements, consider them canceled." There was a long pause. Then, a low chuckle on the other end. "Honestly, I figured this day would come." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Your parents. They always said, 'Don't worry, our son will cover it.' Like it was just a given." A pause. "Well," I said calmly, "that ends today. It was just past 7 p.m. I had barely finished dinner when I heard a loud knock at my apartment door. Not just a knock, a pounding, urgent, and insistent, like whoever was on the other side believed they could break down more than just wood. I looked through the peephole. It was her, my mother. Her hair was slightly disheveled, her cheeks red and puffy. She clutched her phone in one hand and her purse in the other like a woman storming into battle. For a moment, I froze. 1,000 thoughts swirled in my head. Should I even open the door? Should I pretend not to be home? But a deeper part of me, the version of myself that had been buried under guilt for too long, whispered, "No more hiding." I opened the door just wide enough for her to see me. She stepped forward, but I blocked her with my arm, refusing to let her cross the threshold. "Ethan, please," she said, voice trembling. "We need to talk." "About what?" I asked, voice calm, almost cold. Her eyes darted, unsure of where to look. "Mr. Riley called," she said, "their landlord. He told us you're not covering the rent anymore." "I told you I was done," I replied. "Why is that a surprise?" Tears pooled in her eyes again. "Because we need you." "No," I said, voice firm. "You need my money." She flinched like I'd slapped her. "We raised you," she whispered. "We took care of you. And now that we need help, you don't get to throw that at me," I snapped. "You raised me, yes. And then you used me. You planned an entire vacation for the family and intentionally excluded me. Then you told everyone I wasn't too much, that I bring down the mood. Remember that?" Her mouth opened, but no words came. "So now you show up crying because your safety net is gone? Because you have to face the consequences of your choices?" She shook her head, lips quivering. "You don't understand." "We thought—" "No," I interrupted. "You didn't think at all. You decided. You decided I didn't belong. You decided my worth was in the wires I sent every month, not in the son you used to have." I could see it in her eyes, the shift from guilt to anger. "Fine," she said sharply, standing straighter. "If this is who you've become, don't expect us to ever forgive you." I looked her dead in the eye. "Forgive me? For what? For protecting my peace? For setting a boundary you don't like? You don't get to weaponize forgiveness when you never once apologized for how you treated me." Her breath hitched. She looked around like she'd forgotten where she was, like the image she'd carefully constructed of a grateful, obedient son had just shattered at her feet. You told my boss I was unstable, I continued. You messaged my best friend, tried to get people to doubt me. You didn't want reconciliation, you wanted control. Her eyes filled again, this time not with sorrow, but defeat. You've lost your way, she whispered. No, I said softly. I finally found it, and with that I closed the door. No slamming. No yelling, just clarity. Behind the door, I stood still for a few long seconds. I listened as her footsteps faded down the hallway. I didn't shake, I didn't cry, I just breathed. Because for the first time in my life, I had faced the storm, and I hadn't flinched. 3 days passed. No knocks, no calls, no texts from unknown numbers. For the first time in what felt like forever, my phone was silent. But that silence? It wasn't empty, it was sacred, until I opened Facebook again. The post I made, the one where I finally laid out the truth, had exploded. Dozens of shares, hundreds of reactions. And the comments, they weren't just supportive, they were validating. Wow, this hit close to home. Thank you for sharing your story. My brother did something similar to me. I thought I was the only one. You're not selfish. You're surviving. Keep going. It was like the internet had turned into a group therapy circle. And for the first time, I didn't feel alone in what I'd been through. But, of course, they didn't take it quietly. It started with a message from my cousin Madison. Hey, just a heads up, your parents are freaking out. Your mom posted this long thing about how heartbroken she is. It's very woe is me. Want me to screenshot it? I didn't even have to read it. I already knew the narrative. The same tired script. We gave him everything. He changed. He was always distant. We only ever wanted to help. What they didn't say, what they would never say, was why I changed. Because owning up to that would mean admitting the truth. I didn't walk away. They pushed me out. Later that night, I got a call from my Uncle Jim. A guy who had barely spoken to me in years, now suddenly acting like I owed him a seat at my emotional table. Ethan, I just want to talk. Your mom's really torn up about all this. She says she doesn't know what went wrong. She does, I said flatly. She says she doesn't. Then she's lying to you or to herself. Either way, not my problem anymore. He was silent for a beat. You know, family doesn't give up on each other. I almost laughed. You mean the way they gave up on me when they planned an entire vacation and left me out on purpose? He cleared his throat. That wasn't personal. It was entirely personal, Uncle Jim. And now that I've stopped paying for everything, suddenly they want me back? He tried again. Look, Ethan, this could all be water under the bridge. Just take the post down. Talk to them. We can fix this. I closed my eyes and said the one sentence I knew would finally end the conversation. Uncle Jim, I'm not interested in fixing something that was built on using me. Click. Call ended. And for the first time, I wasn't shaken by the guilt that used to follow conversations like that. I was proud, because the old me, the people-pleasing, check-writing, boundary-less version of myself, he would have caved. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had drawn a line. And this time, I wasn't going to erase it just because someone else found it inconvenient. That same night, I got a DM from a guy I hadn't heard from since high school. He said, Hey man, saw your post. I've been going through something similar with my mom. Felt like I was crazy. Reading your story made me feel seen. So, thanks. And that message? It meant more than every forced "we love you" my parents ever sent. Because the truth? When you finally speak up, you don't just free yourself, you give others permission to do the same. By the end of the week, the dust wasn't just settling, it was choking them. I heard from a former neighbor, Miss S. Carter, who texted me out of the blue, Ethan, your mom stopped me in the grocery store to explain her side. She was crying, but not convincingly. I just nodded, but I know what's really going on. I read every word of your post. I believe you. That message hit different. Not because I needed validation, but because it proved something that once felt impossible. The truth was louder than their lies now. Then came the second domino, one I never expected to fall. Their landlord, Mr. Riley, messaged me directly. Just wanted to update you. Your parents missed rent again. Said you'd handle it. I reminded them that those days are over. They weren't happy. I smiled. Not because they were struggling, I didn't take joy in that, but because they were finally living in the reality they created. For the first time in years, they had to face the world without hiding behind my paycheck. The safety net was gone, and the free fall had begun. Then something even more surreal happened. I got a letter in the mail from a local newspaper. Apparently, someone had submitted my story anonymously after my post went viral. They wanted to feature me in an article about financial abuse and adult children reclaiming their boundaries. I sat in my kitchen, the letter in one hand, coffee in the other, and I felt it. Weightless. No more shame. No more guilt. No more wondering if I was overreacting. Because the world wasn't just seeing what I went through, it was learning from it. I agreed to the interview. And a week later, there I was. A photo of me smiling, for real this time, next to a headline that read, "When support becomes sacrifice, one man's story of taking back his life." I didn't need fame. I didn't want pity. But that article? It was a marker, a line in the sand. I was no longer their secret. Their narrative, the one they carefully crafted to paint me as unstable, selfish, cruel, had collapsed under its own dishonesty. And I was still standing. That same evening, I got a text from my sister, Leah. The first one since our last exchange weeks ago. I don't know what to say anymore. Everything's so messed up. I stared at it for a long moment. And then I replied, "You don't have to say anything, just don't lie to yourself like they do." There was no response. But I didn't need one, because I wasn't living for their words anymore. I had my own voice now, and the world had finally started to listen. A few weeks after the article was published, my apartment felt different, quieter. Not in a lonely way, but in a liberating way. Like the silence was no longer an absence, but a choice. I'd wake up without anxiety gnawing at my chest. No more text notifications demanding cash. No more voicemails dripping with guilt. No more pretending that I was just being a good son, because now I knew better. One afternoon, I was walking home from work when I passed a bookstore and saw something that stopped me cold. A flyer in the window advertising a support group for adult children of emotionally manipulative families. I went inside. I sat in the back the first time, listened more than I talked. But as I heard others speak, something inside me started to shift. I wasn't alone, I wasn't crazy, and I wasn't cruel. I was just finally free. I shared my story during the third meeting, told them about the years I spent funding a family that only saw me as a provider, about the Bahamas trip, about the Facebook post, about the knock at my door. And when I finished, someone said, "You didn't just save yourself, you taught the rest of us how to do it too." I didn't realize it until that moment, but that was it. That was the value in all the pain. Not revenge, not victory, but truth. That night, I sat at my desk, pulled out my journal, and wrote, "I am not responsible for the comfort of those who discard me when I'm inconvenient. I am not the family bank. I am not the fixer, the hero, or the quiet one anymore. I am Ethan Matthews. I am allowed to choose myself." And from that day forward, I lived by it. No more compromise. No more buying love with silence. No more bending backwards for people who wouldn't lean forward for me. Instead, I booked a trip to Iceland, alone. It was cold, wild, peaceful. And as I stood beneath the northern lights, breathing in air so clean it almost stung, I smiled. Not because everything was perfect, but because I no longer needed their permission to be happy. That version of me, the one they could guilt into submission, was gone. And in his place, a man who knew that family isn't blood, it's boundaries, it's respect, it's choice. And the next time someone asks me, "Do you regret cutting them off?" I'll simply say, "No. I regret not doing it sooner." If you've ever felt like you had to earn love through sacrifice, if your family only remembered you when they needed help, if setting boundaries made you the bad guy, you are not alone. And you are not wrong. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you loved just to save yourself? Tell us in the comments. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who need to know they're allowed to choose peace over obligation. And don't forget to turn on notifications, because every week we share stories like this, raw, real, and healing. Because here, We believe one thing above all: you don't owe anyone your life, especially not those who used your love like a paycheck. You are allowed to put yourself first. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to heal. And you are allowed to be free.